Okay, to get us started now, it's a great pleasure to invite both a non-executive director of UKIsrael Business and the managing partner of Remagine Ventures, Eze Vidra, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the characteristics that we as Brits need to learn to deal with Israelis and some of the characteristics Israelis need to learn to deal with us. And we're not going to call anything marketing bullshit when it comes to slides or anything else like that. But please welcome Eze Vidra.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks, Hugo. Thanks, UKIsrael Business. My name is Eze Vidra. I'm managing partner of Remagine Ventures. We're a new fund investing in early-stage startups in Israel and the UK. But normally, I would talk about startups, venture capital, or strategy for investing. But today, I'm talking about a slightly different topic, as Hugo mentioned. In my capacity of board member at UKIsrael Business, Hugo asked me to talk about what can we do to bring the two markets closer together. And since I spend a lot of my time doing it anyway, whether it's my blog, VC Cafe, covering Israeli startup news in English, or the Israeli Tech Parliament, of which we have a few members here today. Raise your hand if you're in the Tech Parliament. All right. Which is the largest meetup for Israeli entrepreneurs and tech workers in the UK, or tech bikers, and most recently, in my capacity as an investor at Remagine Ventures. There's a few things that I learned along the way, being a dual citizen and traveling between the two markets very often. So let's make this session a little bit light and somewhat of a comic relief. So promise that these are the last statistics you get in the presentation. So UK and Israel trade is actually doing really well. There's been 11 billion in trade in 2018. These numbers came from the embassy, so hopefully they're not too wrong. This is 15% increase year over year. There's about 400 Israeli companies operating in the UK. 29 of them are publicly traded. About 80 of them are Israeli startups, mostly concentrated in the London area. And there's also a lot of British giants operating in Israel, including Sky, Tesco, Barclays, RBS, etc. So you could say like, okay, everything's great. So where's the gap? So the reality is that there's still a gap. UK is a very important partner of Israel, the largest in Europe and third globally. But when you compare it to the US, despite the geographic proximity of Israel and the UK, it's completely unparalleled, the level of trade and collaboration that happens between Israel and the US, right? So in the UK, we have 11 billion. Between Israel and US, 35 billion. In London, we have 80 startups. In New York alone, we have 324 Israeli startups. And when it comes to the corporates that are active in Israel, there's been a very interesting recent report by PwC and Startup Nation that says that there's 535 multinational R&D centers operating in Israel, out of which only 25 are from the UK and 295 are from the US. So there's still a lot of work to do. And I thought, okay, how do we solve this problem, or what can we do to bring the two markets closer together? So first, we'll start with a bit of a Hebrew lesson. And I'll teach you 3 words that actually make the startup ecosystem in Israel so successful. But also, the UK has a very successful startup ecosystem as well, so I promise that we'll do the counter of this as well. So the first word, of course, is chutzpah. We all heard it, and I don't actually mean it in the negative connotation of the word. This is not about being rash or aggressive, although sometimes Israelis know how to get things a bit with using some Israeli chutzpah. But this is really a healthy disregard of the impossible, right? Like chutzpah basically means we can do it, believing that you can do it. The second word, for those of you that don't know, is firgun. Firgun is actually one of my favorite words in Hebrew because it really symbolizes the feeling of the startup ecosystem in Israel. Before moving to London 11 years ago, I lived in San Francisco, and I noticed that in San Francisco, very similar to Israel, there is a culture of sharing everything, sharing information, sharing your contacts, sharing your time. And I think part of the things that make the Israeli startups so successful is this culture of like, we're all in this together. So as an example, in the Israeli Tech Parliament, we do events at least once a month. And in these events, we have what we call Firgun time, where someone gets on stage and says like, hi, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm looking for. If you can help, please let me know. So learn this word. And the last one, of course, is hummus. No, I'm joking. Tactless. Tactless is a great word. If Facebook would add another button to the like, it should be tactless. Tactless basically means getting shit done, or basically jumping into action. You know, the best example of things that Israelis do very tactless is the latest mission to the moon, Space IL. Some Israelis, crazy Israelis, decided to compete in the X Prize. They thought that they could send a satellite to the moon using private funding at a fraction of the cost that it's been done before, managed to get the satellite up. By the way, today it came out that the next mission is not going to be to the moon. They say basically like stay tuned, but most likely they will go to Mars. So this is a combination of healthy disregard for the impossible. Let's share it and all be it together and get shit done. Vice versa, there's a lot that Israelis can learn from the UK. After all, if we look at the funding, total level of funding, number of unicorns, etc., the UK is much, much bigger than Israel, maybe twice the size of volume of venture capital and unicorns. But as someone pointed out yesterday in another event I attended, when you talk about Israel, you need to add 2 words, per capita, right? But per capita, Israel is much more advanced. But as a market as a whole, the UK has an incredible startup ecosystem and a lot to learn from. So the first world that Israeli entrepreneurs need to learn to be successful, I think it's please and thank you. They don't really appear in the Israeli lexicon. As part of our work with founders is really to help them cross the chasm and understand how to do business internationally. And this is something that I think the UK really excels at. Of course, there's the quintessential British brands and storytelling. To build a large company, at the end of the day, you have to capture the hearts and minds of people. And not just the people that are going to be buying your product, but also the customers, also the employees, the partners, the investors, etc. And I think the UK's excellence in brand building, in design, etc., are something that the Israelis can really learn from. And finally, football. I think everyone can agree that Israel has a lot to learn from England in the space. Again, I joke. But really, it's patience. There's a really good story of an American that goes to Oxford for the first time, and he sees these beautiful British lawns. The grass is so green, and it's so well kept. And he basically says, like, he goes to the gardener taking care of the grass, and he says, like, listen, I'm from Texas. How do you do it? Just tell me, like, what do I need to do it? And the guy looks at him and says, you need 3 things. Number 1, you need to water the grass every day. It's like, no problem. We got the best irrigation system in the world, state of the art. Got it, done. And 2, it's like, you need to have the best fertilizers. And he's like, yes, I can get the best fertilizers money can buy. I invested in a company that does fertilizers, got it. What's number 3? He's like, number 3, you need to do it for 700 years, and you'll get along like this. So Israelis don't have patience. Sometimes it's a good thing, but actually to build large companies, it takes time, and this is something that we can all learn from. So what can you do? Why am I telling you this? Like, what can you do to bring the 2 markets together? I think that we need to mind the gap by building stronger bridges between the 2, and that can mean different things. 1, if you haven't been to Israel, this is a great opportunity. UKIsrael Business organizes regular delegations to Israel where we take business people, CEOs, investors, etc., to meet with top companies and find new friends in Israel. 2, you can read news about Israel, partner, invest in startups. There's a lot of them coming here. As Alan mentioned earlier, this is something that's happening more and more. And 3, just be more aware, be more involved. When you read the news and you think about Israel, it's very easy to sort of like hear the guns blowing or think about Iron Dome. But actually, there's so much tech and such excellence on both sides of the equation that I think it's just natural that we bring the 2 closer together. And with that, I'll just say thank you very much for having me.